This book is the epitome of I support women's rights, but also women's wrongs. And I love that. It's so good. It was so bad. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Leonie. Thank you for spending some time with me again today. Today, we are gonna be doing, you know, the yearly half of the year thing where we rank everything that I've read so far the year from worst to best. Yes, I know that we're already way into August. Doesn't matter, we're doing it now. Obviously, there's no way to rate books objectively, so I've just rated them purely based on my own enjoyment. And that's all I have to say about the topic, so let's just hop in immediately. Before I start with the worst one on the ranking, I want to start with the one book that I haven't finished, so a DNF. That is The Midnight Lion by Marie Rakowski. So The Midnight Lion is actually a pretty good book. It's a lot of people's favorite book. It gets a lot of very high ratings. I get it. It's a thematically strong story about a girl learning to come out of her shell, leave her old traditions and ideas behind, figuring out her sexuality. It deals with classism and gender. I get it. Good themes. It's well written. I get it. It was just really boring to me. And I found myself struggling to get through it. I read this during a pretty stressful period in my life, university-wise, so I decided to just move on to something that could hold my attention a little bit better than this book. So I think it's a good example of right book, wrong time. Okay, moving on to the actual worst book that I read so far this year, coming in at number 14 on the ranking, is The Spanish Love Deception. If I look at the two main characters of this book, you can really think like, ah yes, the two genders. Stoic black and white wearing man and bubbly, colorful, tiny lady. This book is the story equivalent of someone going like, let's compare hand sizes. The only thing that I got from this book is that it broadened my vocabulary on the many ways that you can describe that someone is really tall. Because the love interest is tall. He really is. He's massive. Aaron is towering over our main character. He is giant-sized. He's huge. And the author just tells you every single page. So our love interest, Aaron, is widely loved, widely swooned over by readers and kind of seen as like the perfect man, which kind of makes me sad because he's really just a decent human being in this book, and that's all. A man who listens to you while you talk? A man who doesn't think you should go on a diet? Wow. The bar is in hell. If I want to read a book about two people who don't know how to communicate with each other, I'll just pick up a Sally Rooney book next time. Coming in at number 13, we have a very short book called Ghost Wall. This is about a young girl, Sylvie. She's a teenager and she goes on this trip with her dad and a bunch of archaeology students on this archaeology trip where they try to live out what it was like to live in the Iron Age. And they're taking it a little bit too far. There are some rituals involved. There are some sacrifice involved. So given the premise, given the fact that it's called Ghost Wall, and given the fact that this book was explained to me, described to me as being similar to the movie Midsommar, I thought it was going to be a little bit of a horror book. It's not. It's just literary fiction with a slightly morbid twist to it. You know, it's more about family abuse and our main character's abusive father. And it just wasn't what I expected. That's just not really my kind of book. Of course, I realized that I shouldn't chastise a book for not being what I wrongly expected it to be, so I'm sure this is just a good book. It's just a classic example of it's me, not you. Also, this book like weirdly reminded me of my English required reading in the sense that somehow all those books were also really short with like weird morbid twists to it. Coming in at number 12, we have Mrs. Death, which should definitely rank number 1 for best title. This is kind of an experimental story about the personification of death. And she's funny, she's sassy. She has conversations with this kind of washed up writer. There's a chapter from the perspective of a desk. There are chapters in verse, multiple kinds of experimentations of poetry. It was funny and insightful, but in the end it didn't really speak to me the way I think it spoke to other people. Maybe I'm genuinely just not old enough to fully understand the weight of this book. But I think, yeah, this was another example of it's me, not you. Then on number 11, we have The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Our sci-fi girl boss queen. That was a joke. That was a joke, obviously. It wasn't a very good joke, but I would never say that without irony, okay? I've read a lot of dystopian books in my life, so it was very interesting to see a twist on it, that it was more of a utopian story. A book like this is how I like my sci-fis. Purely just a vehicle for interesting ideas. The Dispossessed explores a world without hierarchies. No gender hierarchies, no work hierarchies, no ownership. And Ursula K. Le Guin really knows what she's doing when she explores these ideas on society with such nuance. However, the plot. Do you ever read a non-fiction book and think to yourself, this could have been an essay? That's how I felt about this story. Okay, coming in at number 10, we have A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. I don't know how many times I can talk about this book about a cannibal and cannibalism without it starting to raise a little bit of concern. But here I am once again. What is that? Wait, what is that song? Oh, Kelly Clarkson! Well, okay, here I am once again talking about cannibalism. Trust me, this is a good book. We follow our female main character who is a literal psychopath. And we follow her as she goes after her ex-lovers, kills them, and then eats them. Because, you know, she's kind of a foodie, so she kind of likes cooking and like nice meats. This book is the epitome of I support women's rights, but also women's wrongs. I do not believe in the glorification of murder, but I do believe in the empowerment of women. I do want to put the quick caveat that of course this book is not about female empowerment or anything. It's just an interesting take on how female rage is often left out of literature and how people often do not believe that women are capable of anger and carnage. Speaking of I support women's rights but also women's wrongs, we have number 9 on the list, which is Iron Widow. Imagine the most typical YA fantasy story that you can think of. A main character who is not like other girls. She turns out to be special and magical. There's a love triangle. And then just take everything, put it in a blender, put a spit on it, and you get Iron Widow. Yes, the main character is not like other girls because she's a little unhinged and she refuses to comply to the sexist expectations that are put on women in this historical Chinese fantasy futuristic world. Yes, she turns out to be special, as in she turns out to be a super talented pilot of these flying spirit robots. And yes, there's a love triangle, but it's polyamorous. Unfortunately, the dialogue in this book does read a little bit like, you know, a fan fiction written about like a fandom OC. But nevertheless, I had a lot of fun with this book. Coming in at number 8, we have Betreet by Emily Henry. I think there's one foolproof way of figuring out if you're gonna love this romance book or not, and that is the following. If I tell you that there's a scene in this book where the characters are standing in the pouring rain as they lay out their trauma to each other and then they have a passionate kissing moment, does that make you think, oh, that's really sweet and like beautiful and romantic? Or does it make you think, little bit too much of a Nicholas Sparks vibe for me? That's how you know. If you like it, then you'll like Betreet. Personally, I'm teetering a little bit more to the Nicholas Sparks side. I've come to the conclusion that the romance genre is kind of like a spectrum, with Betreet on the one side and then Red, White and Royal Blue on the other side. And I've noticed that I personally have a preference for like the more like silly, light-hearted stories, as opposed to Betreet, which falls more into like the sweeping emotional side of things. That being said, I did really enjoy this book. I think this is one of the best depictions of two characters falling in love that I've ever seen. I was squealing all throughout like the first half of the story, but as the story progressed, it all became a little bit too dramatic for my tastes. A full reading vlog of me reading all of Emily Henry's books is coming soon, so stay tuned for that. For number 7, I have a guilty pleasure, like the definition of a guilty pleasure. You know, when people say guilty pleasure, they usually just mean that they're enjoying something that most other people don't enjoy, you know, like, or something that they shouldn't enjoy. Like, for example, it's a rom-com movie that you think is absolutely wonderful, but you know that people kind of look down on rom-coms, so it's a guilty pleasure. That's not a real guilty pleasure to me. This was a real guilty pleasure, as in I'm ashamed of the fact that I actually enjoyed this book. I'm almost scared to admit that I enjoyed this book here, because so many of you guys told me to not read this because of how bad it is. And I know that I should criticize this book and tear it to shreds, but I just kind of loved it. It's The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Okay, so for our two main characters, just think of your typical fret boy jock character that makes sexist jokes but doesn't mean them and just sleeps around because he can get any girl he wants. And then also like a book smart, down-to-earth girl who literally utters the words, "I am not like other women," twice in this book. Not once, twice. She helps him studying and he pretends to date her so she can make her crush jealous. It's a typical hate to friends to lovers, which is my absolute favorite ship dynamic of all time. So there you already have it. It has these I can be completely myself around you vibes. And I love that. It's so good. It was so bad. There were so many bad things about this book, but the chemistry between these characters, off the charts. And for a book that has such like red flag characters, it was surprisingly sex positive. Like the consent in this book was really good. The characters actually communicate. Characters communicating well is a rare commodity in the romance genre, so when I come across it, I cherish that. I just enjoyed this book. I cannot say anything else about it. It just really struck a chord with me. And I know it's not good, and I don't care. We're moving on. At number 6, we have Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. Do I understand the people that are disappointed in this book after they've read Normal People? Yes. Do I agree? No. You know these cliche sayings that you kind of cringe at a little bit always? Things like, oh, it's about the little things in life, or in the end life is just about the friends you make, like, yeah, whatever. And then you enter your mid-20s and your frontal lobe has finally fully developed, and suddenly you're like, wait, actually, life is about the little things. Huh, it really is just about the friends that you're with. That could actually be like pretty deep and profound. That is this book. Also, it's another case of I weirdly relate to these horrible characters. Oh my god, what is wrong with me? Coming in at number 5, we have a short story by Ursula K. Le Guin called The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas. I should really read more short stories because I rarely do, but then when I do, I love them. I I can't really explain the plot to you because I feel like if I do, I just spoil the short story because it's only 9 pages. So I'll just explain the themes that are explored in here that really spoke to me. On the one hand, it explores ethics, the question of, is it okay to hurt one person if it means the happiness of hundreds of others? And secondly, it really touches on society's aversion to joy, how we think that interesting and deep topics can never be happy or joyous. And also the short story inspired a music video for BTS, so that can also be a reason for you to want to pick it up. We're now getting to like the top books, like these fangirling moments. On number 3 and 4 we have The Cruel Prince and the Wicked King by Holly Black. I know it's such a cliche, yeah. I also love these books. I read them back to back, so they kind of blur in my mind, so I'm just gonna talk about them together. And I haven't read the 3rd book in the series yet. This is another case of, I do not believe in the glorification of murder, but I do believe in the empowerment of women. And there's a lot of murder in this one. I think I just really enjoy reading about female main characters that are just really mean. And romances in which the 2 characters are just really mean to each other. And villains that are just really mean to everyone. The fact that I've seen people complaining about the enemies to lovers in this book because it was too much enemies and not enough lovers, that's just another reason for me to love this book. The romance takes a backseat though. The story is mostly just intrigue and spying and backstabbing and lots of backstabbing and just pure fun. Okay, coming in at number 2. I wanted to say this is my new favorite Dark Academia book, but then I realized that number 1 on this list is also Dark Academia. So this book is my 2nd favorite Dark Academia book of all time. It's These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. The reason that I love this book is simply that it contains my favorite character dynamic of all time, and that is just pure toxic dark obsession. We're in the 70s. There's these 2 young boys that are very misunderstood by everyone, and they start a secret relationship with each other. They're very fascinated by each other. It's a classic case of nobody understands me but you. We're better than everyone else. They are nothing compared to us, and that slowly spirals into violence. I think if you like Hannibal the TV series or Killing Eve, you will also like this book. And I want more people to read it. I don't understand why this is not, like, with the obsession about Dark Academia, I don't understand why not more people are reading this. Okay, and then coming in at number 1, my favorite book of the year is also one of my new favorite books of all time, and that is Bunny by Mona Awad. A very divisive book. I fall into the group of people that absolutely loved it. If you could see my copy, I have so many annotation tabs in this because this book begs to be annotated. And like half of the annotations are parts where I was just like, I don't understand what's going on. I think I need to look back on this after I finished it, so hopefully I will understand it better. And this is definitely one of those books that is very interesting to go over again once you finished it, because it's very bizarre. I just had a lot of fun trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And then the second part of the annotations is just such beautiful passages and interesting messages. Like, this book does such a good job at describing the very complex dynamic of toxic female friendships, with the whole not like other girls versus popular girls thing, and how men influence these female friendships. Also really great commentary on academia and writing, and just I think this story is a masterpiece. I know that the saying is overused, like the girls that get it and the girls that don't. But trust me, this is the epitome of that sentence. Like, the people who get it, and if you don't, you just don't, and that's fine. But if you get it, you're gonna love it. Okay, that was pretty quick. I think we went through that pretty quickly. And those were all the books that I read so far this year. It's only 15. I haven't really read this year as much as I usually read, probably because I'm still working on my thesis. You know the drill, you know the drill. I'm still working on that. I'm almost finished, and there will be a vlog coming, and I'm excited about that. If you like this content and you wanna join us again when we chat about books on this channel, you can subscribe, and you can also follow me on Instagram or Twitter. It's just at thebookleo. Let me know what your favorite book of the year was so far. Also give me fave book recommendations. I forgot to say that, but I need more fave book recommendations now that I've rekindled this obsession with fae after reading The Cruel Prince. So leave it in the comments. I really hope you had a very wonderful day. It's very hot here in the Netherlands, like we're in a heat wave, so I'm really sacrificing it all for you guys by sitting in the attic right now to film this video, because it's, you know, the heat rises up and such. Anyway, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you soon next week. Goodbye.